Hello, everyone. I'm Lori Hines with Just Among Friends. I'm excited today to be here with you and with my co-host Ann Stacy with Texans for a Safe Israel, and Mike Isley with Texans for Israel, and myself with A Taste of Israel. We have a very exciting guest today, but she is with us today as well as so many other speakers who have joined us on our show because we all share the same common mission, which is to enlarge our circle of friends between Christians and Jews, with no hidden agenda on either part. And so we all speak on a variety of topics, both related to Christianity and Judaism and the land of Israel and the people of Israel. So today's speaker is Bunni Pounds. Welcome, Bunni.
So great to be with you, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Bunni, Bunni Pounds is you should no longer be unfamiliar with Bunni Pounds. She is now a household name across the nation and beyond because of a recent incident that happened with her and her organization. So let me do a quick introduction of Bunni, and then we'll dive into what's going on with you and how you came to be a friend to the Jewish people in the land of Israel. So Bunni Pounds is the president of Christians Engaged. This is a nationwide, nonpartisan ministry that awakens, motivates, educates, and empowers believers in Jesus Christ to pray for our nation, elected officials regularly, and to vote in every election to impact our culture and to engage our hearts in some form of political education or activism for the furtherance of America the Beautiful. I added the beautiful because we love our country.
Amen.
And so Bunni is also has been a political consultant and a campaign manager. She spent 15 years running campaigns for members of Congress around Texas. She even ran for Congress herself. And so Bunni has a Bachelor of Arts and Science degree. She has a Bachelor in Political Science, and she has an associate degree in theology. Bunni is married to Tim Pounds for 25 years now, and they have two young adult sons, Israel and Ben, and now two lovely daughters-in-law, Theodora and how do you pronounce your daughter-in-law's name?
Julia.
Julia, it's beautiful, from Brazil. So Bunni loves to motivate people to pray, vote, and engage their hearts to impact America and ultimately the world. She believes that people are called to walk in intimacy with Jesus and be salt and light to a dying world. Okay, Bunni, what a beautiful bio, because it's very rare to find a Christian, so as strong a Christian and in your walk and as well as politically engaged. That to me is the missing link, I think, in our country.
Yes,
My personal 2 cents, right? So we're going to talk about that, but welcome. We're excited to have you. I want to talk about what's going on with you now, but I want to start there, and then I'm going to go over to how you are a friend to the Jewish people and the land of Israel. So recently, you had something dropped in your lap, so to speak, in your life, in your nonprofit that was shocking. It shocked the nation. It went viral in every media outlet across the nation overnight. This is maybe 2 weeks ago. So in case you're watching this recording, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the IRS went after Bunni, or I shouldn't say maybe went after you. What they did is they denied your nonprofit status, and you're going to tell us about that. So why don't you take a few minutes and tell us exactly what it was and what happened and where you're at with this?
Well, first of all, it is great to be among friends, Christians and Jews that love Israel and love to be active, because that is what we're called to do, is to be actively praying, voting, and engaging. And that's the mission of Christians Engaged. But we're a nonpartisan Christian ministry. We're mostly focused on the state of Texas, but now have people interacting with us around the country because of this. But our heart is to, again, get people to pray, vote, and engage from a nonpartisan point of view, but around what the Bible teaches about different issues. And so we talk about public policy positions as it relates to the Bible, but we never endorse political parties or candidates. Well, the IRS sent us a denial letter after 18 months of just kind of us in waiting limbo. And the letter was unique. I remember when I read it, I thought, did they really say that? but they put in writing that they were denying us our 501c3 status because biblical teachings, quote, are affiliated with the Republican Party. Now, we were really shocked when we read that. We're like, we didn't know the Bible was a partisan document, which it isn't. The Bible, of course, we all know, whether we studied the Old Testament or the New Testament, was created thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's not a partisan document. There are political parties that have aligned around policy points that, we can debate whether are closer to the Bible or not. But the point is, that was shocking to all of us because it would have huge ramifications to every organization, whether you're Jewish or Christian, wherever you stand in religion. To not be able to talk about public policy issues as it relates to your faith is crazy.
Yes.
So
Wow.
we fought it with the friends of our friends at First Liberty Institute, that they do First Amendment cases around the country, over 3,000 cases right now.
Wow.
They've represented Jews, Muslims, Christians, anyone who has First Amendment issues. And we sent an appeal to the IRS, a 12-page appeal. We had hundreds of people, thousands of people around the country praying for us, people sharing this on every conservative and religious publication. We had an amazing group of legislators in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate that wrote a letter to the IRS commissioner demanding them to look into our case and to fire anybody involved. And then Kevin Brady and Congressman Jim Jordan sent a letter to the Treasury Department as well for them to look into this, since they have jurisdiction over the IRS. And within 21 days, we had an apology from the IRS and an acceptance letter. So it was a huge victory for all Americans. And we are so glad that they reversed this decision, and we can go on, and we're now tax exempt.
Yay! I just feel the need to applaud because it's a huge victory.
Huge.
It's a crazy situation to be in, but the victory was quick and huge. And it just, like I said before we went on, it's a precedent you just set for the whole country. And like you said, Jews, Christians, Muslims, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Let me just take a second here and date stamp this recording, because we are recording this in July of 2021. So this whole IRS debacle happened, I guess, June 2021, right?
Yes. Yeah, we got the acceptance letter a few days after the 4th of July. So it was a huge thing. And it really shows, Lori, that if we stand up and we use our system for good, that our republic works. And I hope it's a story of hope for so many people, because we hear so many bad news stories that it's good to hear a good story, right, of a victory.
Oh, good. It is so good. Thank you for that. Yes, what a great shining light you are in this victory for others to be inspired. Well, let's it's hard to top that story because it's such a wonderful story, but I do want to go and ask you now about before this happened, I met you at a pro-Israel rally in Dallas not too long ago. And when I learned about your history, I really wanted to speak with you, and Anna and Mike and I all wanted to speak with you. And we want you to tell us about kind of the starting point, how you became friends with Orthodox Jews, you as a Christian, with no hidden agenda to proselytize them, because sometimes that's what people try to do, but that's not what we do. And tell us about your first experience of going into this circle of friends, so to speak.
Well, I've known Jewish friends in Dallas for a long time. I can't remember when I started really getting close to people that were Jewish, but it was definitely in my kind of Bible school days when I was 18, 19, 20. But when I got politically involved, I realized really quick that faith is such a big part of what we do, and that we have to unify with people that sometimes are not exactly the same with us, but that agree on the same issues. And for me, as a young mom, Israel was a big issue for me. My husband has been to Israel 3 times in his younger years, and I kept trying to plan a trip with him, and I kept getting pregnant, and I finally just gave up. But we named our first child Israel out of our love for the Jewish people.
Wow.
and for the land of Israel. And I really see the land of Israel as a huge miracle story, that
Hmm.
God is faithful. He's a covenant keeping God. And if we believe that, no better example or picture of that is that he brought his people back and formed the land of Israel as it is right now, right?
Right. Totally. Yes.
So that's been a huge plumb line for us as Christians, to educate people on the importance of natural Israel, and from the spiritual perspective, in that, we've been grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel as Christians, but also from a political perspective, that we need to be standing with our democratic ally in the Middle East. And that is so important for us as American Christians to do. And Christians, frankly, around the world should
Right.
be standing with our brothers and sisters in Israel. So that's been a story for me for a long time. About, I guess it was 2014, 2015, I got an invitation to go to Israel with AEIF, which is the nonprofit part of APAC.
Hmm.
Such an amazing trip. Went to, if you can imagine, 10 days of drinking from a fire hose, going around the country, going to every border, going to the Knesset, going to Independence Hall. I had so many experiences there, but couldn't stop weeping over the land and realizing how small the geography is. Really, for us in Dallas, Fort Worth, it's like Tyler to Fort Worth,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And the amazing story that the land of Israel is still protected and is still a thriving nation, is such an amazing thing, and just is really humbling, and just again made me even more active in pro-Israel politics. And I have so many friends here in Dallas Fort Worth, so many friends that are Jewish, that we have broken bread together. We have spent time with our families. We've worked together in the trenches of this issue, and I just love them.
Fantastic. I feel your passion, Bunny. Seriously, I feel it. We feel it here. Anna, Mike, and I, we're all the same. I mean, you can't, when we start talking about it, you can't hardly shut us up. I mean, all four of us here, like, I get you. I understand your language and your passion. We all do. And it's beautiful that's why it's so beautiful to come together as, friends and like-minded people, because Israel does change your world. It changes
Yes.
your life. And when you know a Jewish person, that even elevates the experience even more. So that I love that you shared your passion. This is great. So speaking of your passion, how has your love of Israel and going to the land of Israel on that trip and all of this, besides naming your child after Israel, how has it impacted your life professionally?
I think, I'm kind of one of those crazy people. When I love something, I change my life around it. So, I love to drink Israeli wine, right?
Yeah.
I love to buy Israeli products.
Yes.
I love to tell people to go to Israel, make that a priority, to travel to the land, right? But, so many people that I've met in this movement have, again, become dear, dear friends. Being a pro-Israel Christian activist, in the movement, going to Washington, D.C., talking to my congressman, making sure that even the man that actually beat me in a Republican runoff, making sure he stands with Israel, making sure that he understands that's the most important issue, one of the most important issues to me and to the constituents, is such a huge priority in my life. And it just, again, it bleeds into everything. When I ran for Congress, the Jewish community in Dallas were some of my first funders to help me. They wanted somebody that believed like them to go to Congress, and it was such an honor to walk with them. And it's just turned my heart even more towards them, that we have to stand together, and however we can work together. And my role right now with Christians Engaged is to get more people engaged in pro-Israel activism in churches, to realize that they have a voice, they need to do something. And then hopefully that joins with many of our Jewish brothers and sisters that are on the front lines of that issue.
Yeah, wonderful. I think, again, the common thread here is engagement. Whether you're engaging for Christian values, Judeo values, or really what there should be no divide. It's Christian Judeo values, right? That's what our country was founded on. And certainly both faiths come from the land of Israel. Everything originated there. And so our eyes are always on Israel. Our eyes are always on Jerusalem. And I really applaud your effort to continue making people think about this and bringing it to the forefront. It's very important. And so I want to ask you something. You know, you're a leader, you're a Christian leader, you're a political leader, you're, a pro-Israel leader. And what is the secret to getting more Christians engaged and seeing it the way you see it, to open their eyes and to awaken them to what you're trying to do, both for Christianity and for Israel and all, everyone involved? What's the secret to getting people engaged?
People, especially Christians, they're being awakened with a burden for America right now. They're seeing things that are shifting in our republic. And they, if we walk with God, we should feel, and I don't think if it's Christian or Jew, we should feel some of the shifting happening and we should want to respond, right? We naturally want to respond because we are created in the image of God. We have part of his DNA in us. So he's a creative God. We're creative. We want to change things. We want to make sure things are right. We see things out of alignment and we want to bring them into alignment, right? Naturally, as people. So I think my role is to help people find beginning steps to save our republic. Pray, right? It sounds like rocket science, but it's not. Yeah. Spend time talking to God. Talk to God about the burdens of your heart. Talk to God about your elected officials. Talk to God about what's happening in your city, state, nation. It's time to vote. We should be voting for people that are pro-Israel, right? We should be voting in every election. We should be voting in our primary elections where most of our congressional districts are gerrymandered a certain way. So therefore, the only way we're going to make sure that we have pro-Israel elected officials in whatever party is voting in primaries, right? Getting engaged and making sure that, Iron Dome continues to be funded, making sure things are happening on the ground that should be happening, making sure that we're pushing back against the BDS movement wherever we find it in Texas or nationally, right? And then engaging somewhere, again, I think there's so many ways we can engage. If you're involved in a political party, make sure that political party's platform stays pro-Israel. Make sure that you're electing good candidates, vetting those candidates and making sure they're pro-Israel. Making sure that we're walking together as Christians and Jews in the pro-Israel movement. And I would love to share one little story, Lori, if it's okay.
Yeah, please, of course.
Inspire people. But I remember my husband and I went to our first APAC policy conference in Washington, D.C., and we're standing there with, 14,000 Jewish people. I think they estimated that year there was about 250 of us that were Christians. And it was such an honor because you're walking around this convention center and all the Jewish people are like, wow, thank you for being here. They're just like treating us like royalty. And Tim and I were just like really honored to be there and lobby with them for Israel. And we were standing outside and we were in a taxi line. And I'll never forget this. I mean, there was all these crazy protesters out there, right? It was like Occupy Wall Street, but it wasn't. It was the pro-Palestinian, Israel's occupiers calling us just horrible names. Things that I've never seen really before as a Christian. And I remember my husband turning to me and he just said, this is one of the most important moments of my life. I am just honored to be standing here with them because they didn't know if we were Christian or Jew. They just knew we were for Israel. That was an amazing moment. And it just put it in perspective for me that when we stand side by side as Jews and Gentiles together in a cause, it is extremely powerful, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be one of those righteous Gentiles like Corrie ten Boom and Dietrich Bonhoeffer and people that stood on the front lines for the Jewish people. and said, we need to stop Jewish hate. And this is going to be, I hate to say this is going to continue to be an issue that we're all fighting. But right now, in this moment of history, we have to stand up together in one voice and say, not on my watch, not on this, in this generation, am I going to let people denigrate and desecrate the Jewish faith and our Jewish brothers and sisters. And so that was one of the moments that everything really became clear for me.
That's amazing. That's so true. I mean, this, if we had to sum up what we're doing, it's that we will not allow this. That's why we started this entire Just Among Friends, to do exactly what you're talking about. So we are so thrilled to be walking this journey alongside of you, Bunny, and so many others. There's more of us than people realize, to be honest. I mean, let me ask you probably a final question as we wrap up here. For those who might not understand some of the things that you just said, I want to kind of focus in on one thing that you said and get you to explain it to those who may not fully understand yet what we're talking about. Okay, you said one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we are electing pro-Israel politicians and leaders.
Yes.
For many people who don't quite understand why, I have had them tell me or ask me this more than one time, more than one person, multiple people say, Lori, I get it. I love Israel. For Christians, I love the fact that we can go to a place where Jesus walked in the land of Israel. But listen, our country's falling apart. I really can't even focus on anywhere else but our country. Why does it matter that I elect pro-Israel politicians to lead us here in our country? I can only focus on America. What would you say to them as to why you said it's important to elect pro-Israel leaders?
Well, again, Israel is our only democratic ally in the Middle East, one of our strongest allies. When you look at the history between America and Israel, it's a strong partnership. We share intelligence. We share healthcare reforms. Look at everything that Israel's done for America as far as medical innovations, economic innovations, PayPal. All these different companies and technologies that have come out of Israel, right? And we have a strategic partnership. So it is in our best interest as Americans to make sure that Israel stays strong as a nation.
Yes.
And so that alone is important. But when we look at our history as Judeo-Christians and our connection to the land, right? Mm-hmm. Not just Jesus, but go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right?
Right.
All of that history of how we're connected. If the Jewish people had not kept the scriptures safe, we would not have the word of God.
That's right.
So I consider an honor to make sure that what God has in his heart for Israel stays in his heart, and we get to partner with him in this story to make sure Israel as a nation stays strong. And that's very, very important for us. It should be a bipartisan issue.
That's right.
It shouldn't be about Republicans and Democrats. We should all agree on the same thing. But unfortunately, right now we're seeing a new. It really is new. This has always been a nonpartisan, bipartisan effort to make sure that we stay strong with Israel. But lately, there's been all this crazy rhetoric that is trying to divide us. And we as Americans, regardless whether you're Republican or Democrat, should be fighting back against that and making sure that people understand the importance of it.
I agree. Oh, makes total sense. There's so many clear examples I can, list right now, just in this moment of July 2021, where exactly what you're talking about. Thank you for your explanation. I just want to recap. So for those of people who are listening, what you said is so true. Our relationship with Israel is strategic as a nation, right? And so this is what people don't understand, I think. Israel does not need America. America needs Israel. And any nation in their right mind would be lined up at the front door of Israel, knocking on it, begging to do business with Israel. But that's not what the mainstream media narrative is, but that's the truth. And we know that. And you just gave great examples of the technology, the healthcare, agriculture. I mean, you name it, every leading industry,
Drip
medicine.
irrigation.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
God for drip irrigation.
yes, 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 yeah. And our cell phones, right, came out of Israel. So, so important to put that into perspective, even if you're not a religious person, just for the business and the strategic, the diplomat, part of it. Now, for the spiritual part of it, yes, absolutely. I mean, everything started in Israel and everything's going to end in Israel, right?
Right.
It is the barometer of the world for sure, Jerusalem specifically. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. We are so honored to know you and to have you on our show. We applaud you. We're so proud for your victory. It is setting the precedent, and we will continue to watch you gain victory across our nation with what you're doing with Christians Engaged. What is your website so people can join you and keep up with you?
Yeah, it's christiansengaged.org. We've got lots of articles, podcasts, videos, lots of resources there. And we would love to connect you to the pro-Israel movement too. So however we can connect you to fulfill the call of God on your life as it relates to this issue, we want to help do that and
Okay.
on that.
Okay, great. One final thing. If a church wants to have you come speak at their church or their group or any group wants to have you speak, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, just call us. My email is bunny with an I at christiansengaged.org, or we have an invite tab, invite us on our website, and we come very, very cheap.
Okay.
So if you want to go, it doesn't matter if you're a small church, medium church, a Bible study, we will come. Send somebody. We have amazing speakers, not just myself, but a lot of different people around the state.
Wonderful. Well, Bunny, it's an honor to know you and have you. Thank you for joining us here on Just Among Friends. If you guys are watching this, thank you for watching. Please share this video. Please reach out to Bunny and her organization to have them. We need to get behind her and support her for nothing else but for our great country and for our relationship with Israel. Thanks again, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.